Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Asgard. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope we're doing well. And yes, once again, another movie review on the Welcome to Asgard channel. Hopefully, I can keep up making more videos for the channel other than just re-uploading the podcast version of the live streams over on the main channel. So thank you so much for everyone that's been watching these videos today and smashing the like and leaving a comment. Please share them also if you can. So today, I am reviewing another 1980s film. Looks like my 80s knowledge is slowly growing. Rosetta Allen. But this time I watched a movie called They Live, starring Roddy Piper. I'm someone that's been a huge wrestling fan for a very long time, ever since really the 90s when I started off watching WCW, actually, and then eventually over time, once the Monday Night Wars got really into it, eventually switched over to that time WWF into WWE. So Roddy Piper's always been a name in my life for a very long time. I never knew that he had been in a film really until I started doing my YouTube channel and people started saying, "Oh, have you seen this movie? Have you seen this movie?" And one of them brought up in a live stream was They Live, and I said, "No, I've never seen it." And so my boy Bruce, once again, who sent me a lot of films that I'm starting to try to go through, sent me this one because he said that you need to see this if you've never seen it. I have never seen it up until now. So what can I say about They Live? Well, to be honest, I thought the film would be a little bit more epic than what it ended up being. However, the film definitely subverted my expectations because every time I heard They Live and I saw the cover for it, I thought, oh, is this going to be some type of like zombie movie-esque? And then when I realized that it's actually a much deeper, almost philosophical film dealing with, this alien-esque race, I was like, whoa, this is kind of actually pretty interesting. And I actually enjoyed it for the most part. I really did enjoy it for the most part. There were a couple of scenes, really, or a couple of sequences that I think slowed the pace of the film down a little too much. It starts off slow, and then as you slowly get certain plot points revealed, it starts to pick up. But then in the middle of the film, there's these random slow sequences that I feel kind of drags it a little bit too far. And then eventually you get to that ending where you're like, oh, okay, this is pretty cool. All the fighting, all the gun shooting, etc. But overall, it is enjoyable. I will say that much. It's definitely a product of its time. It's definitely not a movie that's going to win any Oscars. It's a John Carpenter film, though, so it is actually very well made. I think the cinematography is pretty damn good. The visual effects, being mostly practical effects, are really awesome. I love the use of the sunglasses in order to see and see what the world's actually like and to see what people are actually people is really fascinating. And the whole concept of being able to look at a magazine cover and see what it actually, the message behind the magazine, saying consume or do this or do that, I think is actually very brilliant because it's a way of looking at the world through the lens of a movie and being able to say a philosophical point about what the overall consumerist culture that we live in really is saying to us on a daily basis. And instead of just keeping it there, bringing it into there's also aliens that are behind the scenes that are causing all of this stuff to be put out there. So it was one of those things where I guess you could say it got kind of political in that way. However, I think it was done in the best way possible, being that it was more of a philosophical point than it was a purely political point, which I personally enjoyed. As I said, I really did enjoy the overall process of the film itself. Again, you got Roddy Piper in this film, who, again, John Carpenter made it, the same person that did Halloween, the original Halloween, and, of course, The Thing, or the remake of The Thing. His is probably the most well-known version of The Thing as well. You also had a couple other people in here. Keith David, who is an actor that, look him up, you'll be like, oh, that dude, who I, again, thoroughly enjoyed this film too. Roddy Piper's acting was actually not terrible. What was interesting to me is that one of the best lines of this film, which is an iconic line about chewing bubblegum and kicking butt, I was like, okay, I love that line. I laughed at that line. It was great, but it was so out of place. And so I know there's a lot of people out there that say this is a guilty pleasure type film, that it's not meant to be a good movie, and I can understand that. But there are so many things in here that are actually legitimately, objectively good. And so that's why I'm kind of in this in-between spot, because there's parts that I thoroughly enjoyed because they were good. There are parts that I enjoyed because they were campy and so bad that they're good, funny type of situation. But then there's also things that were just, because of that back and forth and because of that being almost unclear, it's hard for me to really have an opinion on this movie. It's a movie that I think I could probably watch again. It's not one that I want to watch anytime soon, but it is still, I think, a movie that's worth checking out if you like 1980s films. Don't let the cover fool you, though. It's not as full of action as you might think. That's, again, one of the things that I think one of the misconceptions I had going in was I thought it would be a little bit more action to it. It was an hour-and-a-half film and that I thought was going to get going pretty quickly, because normally if you're 90 minutes, you got to get the story rolling pretty quickly. But for the first 30 minutes, it's exposition and setting up, and most of it's done well. Again, well shot, well written, well put together. And then eventually when the plot starts to unveil itself, it picks up steam. But because it just is start and stop all throughout, there were parts of this where I was starting to get a little bit sleepy, which I don't think is the reaction that you want to have for a film like this. So if I had to give this film a grade, I would give it a C+. I think that it's well above average. Some people might not like that grade, but I'm doing this based off of subjective and objective points of view. And I know that I'm being probably overcritical of this movie. However, you all know me. I am the critic who is a cynic. And so I'm going to look at things through a critical lens. And to me, this wasn't complete 100% camp. If it was, that's stuff that I can normally let go and I can normally subjectively appreciate that much more. But because it's serious, but then it's not serious, and there's these underlying philosophical themes and there's all this other stuff going on, I just felt confused. I was like, what is this movie trying to be? You know, there's some things that are being great, that being done well, and there's some things that are not. So yeah, I think a C+ is a pretty fair grade overall for this movie. But anyway, let me know your thoughts. What are your thoughts about They Live? Is this the greatest movie of all time for you? Again, I think it's very enjoyable. I think that a lot of the stuff and a lot of the messages that are in this film are definitely not like, I'm going to hit you over the head with the messaging and just leave it at that. I think there is a really great film and a great message in this movie, while also at the same time just being ridiculously awesome. I mean, just go ahead and look at the back cover. You see Roddy Piper, you know, with a machine gun just mowing down people. I know there's some people out there can say it's not technically a machine gun. You know what I mean, though. So that kind of stuff is pretty cool. The action is pretty fun. And overall, I think the story is interesting, to say the least. So anyway, let me know your thoughts about They Live, and let me know your thoughts about anything I talked about in the comments section below. Like this video, smash that like button, give us a subscribe. It helps us a lot. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful day, and as always, God bless.